feel like traditional goal setting makes you want to run screaming into the forest? Turns out I'm not lazy or flaky. I'm a non-linear thinker, and it's really changed completely how I think about running my art business. If you've ever felt like you don't work the way the world wants you to, this one's for you. So, what the hell is non-linear thinking? Let's start with what it's not. Linear thinking is step-by-step, timelines, and progress bars, and a whole heap of other things. But if that's never worked for you, here's why. Non-linear thinking is spiral-based, intuitive, messy, but genius. Not that I'm saying I'm a genius, but it's a genius way of thinking. It's not chaos, it's constellation logic. When comparing the two, picture a factory versus a forest, or a ladder versus a spiral staircase. You're still moving forward, but just not in a straight line. So when did I realise I was probably a non-linear thinker? I didn't always know this. In fact, it's only recently that I've worked it out. I used to beat myself up for not sticking to rigid plans or goal trackers or productivity hacks. I had journals and notes full of beautiful systems that I tried for 5 seconds and found out that it didn't work for me. And then one day I realised, oh, the problem's not me. It's the system we live in. I thrive in bursts. I orbit ideas. I need space in between. And then one day I was watching YouTube. As I do. And I saw a program on neurodivergent thinking. And I suddenly went, oh, maybe that's me. So I went and did some research. And I realised that's not actually me. It's just that I think in a different way to most people who are running businesses or working in jobs and stuff like that. And that's why it never worked for me, but I didn't know until now, after it's too late. No. And that's when I started building a business that actually works for me. Because we're not all the same. We're all different. We all have our own ways of doing things. And just because something works for you, or Joe Bloggs down the street, or Max over the road, or Lily that you play golf with, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So how did this actually change my art business? You may well ask. Here's what I'm doing differently. Firstly, I've let go of rigid monthly, weekly, daily, yearly goals. I've embraced creative seasons. I've built a home for my brain on OneNote, the way my brain works, not the way everyone else's works. I stopped pushing projects to fit timelines that didn't match my energy. Instead of getting things done, I focused on alignment, not output. So for me, it's not about productivity. And then all of a sudden, my business felt like it was actually mine. So how do you know whether you're a linear thinker? Well, here's some of the signs. Do you work in bursts and then pause? Do systems make you anxious rather than inspired? And an example of that for me was people talking about Notion being the best thing for helping organise your business. But every time I tried to use it, I got anxious, angry, upset, frustrated, and it just didn't fit with what I was doing. It was too hard to set up for a start. And then once it was set up, it didn't fit the way I thought. Next sign. Do you have 17 tabs open or more in either your brain or your browser? I frequently have maybe 50 spread over a couple of tabs, but yeah, that's me. Next one. Do your ideas arrive like lightning bolts at 2 a.m. in the morning, or at a most inconvenient time, like in the middle of a date, or while you're eating dinner and supposed to be concentrating on your spouse? Yep, that's me as well. I'm frequently in trouble. Do you start things in the middle instead of at the beginning? Or do you jump around between ideas all the time? Those are the kinds of things I do a lot. So I might decide that I want to do a particular thing, like learn how to sculpt with clay. So you have an idea and then you actually go and learn how to do it. That's what happens to me a lot. Just an example. And the other thing I do a lot is jump around between different ideas. So I'll do something and I'll get to a certain point and I need to leave it and go and do something else because that's caught my fancy. Don't get me wrong, I don't not finish things. I just move between them and then come back and then go back to something else. And it's like a dance of my art life. Anyway, this doesn't mean you're scattered. It just means you're powered by non-linear thinking. Or as I like to say, you're spiral powered. No wonder I've always felt an affinity with the symbol of a spiral, because that's how I think. So what do you do if you've just found out you're a non-linear thinker like me? If this hits you in the feels, you're not broken, you're wired beautifully. Here's what helped me. Seasonal focuses instead of long-term goals. So I'm not aimless. I have this vision of my future rather than goals for my future. And part of that is because I feel like goals are an end point and I'm actually on a journey, not about reaching a certain thing. And while I'm doing that, I'm thinking about how certain things can get me there. I don't ever want to shut off the whole idea that I shouldn't take detours, because if I'm so focused on a goal that all I'm doing is the little steps to that, and I get interested in something else and ignore it, that could be something that leads me in a direction that I really need or want to go in. So this is one of the reasons goals don't work for me. And interestingly, as a creative person, a lot of us are non-linear thinkers. This is also why we're often interested in multiple things, why we're multi-passionate people, because we can't contain our brain if we want to remain creative. I'm just thinking of a brain in a box all contained, and it just scares me. So the next thing I've done is set up a constellation style vault in OneNote. So I tried so many different apps and programs and stuff like that to try and record what I'm doing and my ideas and all of that kind of thing, and none of them worked for me until I just jumped on OneNote, which happened to be on my computer anyway, and started recording things in a way that made sense to my brain. And everybody's got to find the way that makes sense to their own brain. So don't worry if OneNote doesn't work for you. I'm just saying that worked for me because it's not so structured and it's also really simple to use. So it means I can go in and set up a page about something and then put all my brain dumps in there. And if I don't use them, they're still there. I never lose them. And I've got ideas and I've got things in progress and I can keep track of where I'm at, but it's really, really easy. And it's not about goals. It's about what's going on in my brain and what don't I want to lose. And I never, ever, ever run out of ideas because I've captured them all. But I'm also kind of organized. Well, it's organized the way my brain works. So I think I said that before, but it is. And you have to find something that organizes your brain the way that it works for your brain. So the other thing I have is like orbit style projects. So they're going on, and although I may not work on them all the time, I'm working on them as they come into my orbit, I guess is the best way to put it. So they're not lost, but they have to fit in with my energy, my seasonal way of looking at things. And if they don't, then they get left for a while. And that's fine. I've come to the stage where I realise that this whole productivity thing that we have in the Western world just doesn't work for me, because it pushes me to do things. I get stressed, I get burnt out, and I can't create. It stops me from creating. So find the way your brain works and set something up around that. If you're ever interested in finding out about how I use OneNote myself, I'm happy to show you, but it's really simple and you could probably work it out yourself based on how your brain works. I also embrace flexibility. So this means not sitting there and saying, I have to get this finished at this particular time because it's so important, and if I don't, then I'm going to fail, which is what I was doing to myself before, and I tell you, it is the worst feeling ever. So an example of what I'm doing is I am actually at the moment making changes to my website, and I've found that if I work in bursts of 2 hours on my website, I actually get more done, think more clearly about it, and also then have time in between sessions to think about what else needs to happen. So it gives me time, but it also means that I don't get frustrated or burnt out. Well, no, I won't say I don't get frustrated, because I still do. But that's only the mechanics of building a website. So that's just an example. It doesn't mean I expect that you would go and build a website or whatever, because there might be an easier way for you. So don't get me wrong, I know that some people don't have the luxury of just letting things happen, and they need to make their business a success so they're financially stable. But for me, this is what's working, and I can't do it any other way. So the big thing to remember, because linear thinking covers so many different ways of doing things, is that you don't need to fix yourself. You just need a system that flows with you. If this hit you in the soul, you're not alone. I'm sure there are many of us out there who think like this and think that we're flawed because we do think like this. But I'm building my whole channel for people like us, the spiral thinkers, the intuitive rebels, and all those gentle creatives. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment if this is you. I'd love to hear about your experience and what you're doing to cope with being a non-linear thinker. And feel free to share this with any other non-linear souls that you know. So from my weird spiraling universe, it's bye for now. I'll see you next time.